Peace, everyone. Welcome for part three of the recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty. We're Moroccan Post on Crumb TV. I want to give a shout out to Brother Crumb and for the hard work he's done and allowing us to use this platform to bring this illuminated knowledge and to provide a lot of clarity, about misconceptions regarding the recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty in the process of bringing our mother, the Moroccan Empire, out of her 200-year period of extinction, disintegration, political collapse. Our mother's been in the hospital in a coma, all right, which is a prolonged state of unconsciousness, in this case, a prolonged state of political inactivity or collapse or disintegration or dismemberment. Those are terms that's used in international law, dismemberment of an empire. You have the dismemberment of the Osman house / dynasty, known as the Ottoman dynasty, and that dismemberment came about through the Treaty of Lausanne. The Treaty of Lausanne, 1919, brought about the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire. 1919, that's still in place today. We have part of Turkey, but the Ottoman Empire and the Moroccan Empire, or the Osman house and dynasty, known as the Ottoman Empire and the Moroccan Empire, are the two world powers, particularly controlling the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean during the 15, 16, 1700s. That is very important because of this transatlantic slave trade story of the English and Portugal and Spain and France and the Dutch transporting 12 million of us out of the continent of Africa to North, Central, South America and the islands. During that time period, the Osman house dynasty and Moroccan Empire controlled the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. It's very important. This is why is this not known to the general public? Because to get off the story that 12 million of us was transported out of the continent of Africa so that we will not be able to make the claim to our land, known to the general public as North America, Central America, South America, and the adjoining islands. So it's very important to give a misinformation or story to misdirect us from our birthright. So now we're looking somewhere else and not knowing that the land, that very land that we are on, the very land that we're born on, our grandmothers and grandfathers and grandparents and parents and grandparents and great grandparents were born on. It's actually our land. And also have distorted the images of what the native autochthonous Aboriginal people look like. So it's very important. So this is why I continue to push to the forefront the Moroccan Empire, the power, the sea power of the Moroccan Empire and the Osman house and dynasty. Very important. When there is discussion regarding the Atlantic Ocean, the sea power in the Atlantic Ocean, you won't hear there are authors who may have, if they mention the Moroccan Empire, one sentence, one paragraph, or no mention at all. So what the authors have done is write about the interchange, the wars and the treaties and the interchange among the various European powers. They actually took out the Ottoman Empire and the Moroccan Empire political activities, treaties. So what I've done in Moors and Masonry Part 1 is place that missing history that's not known to the general public restore it to where it belongs. Give the attention and height importance of this tremendous sea power of the Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman house / dynasty, known to the general public as the Ottoman Empire. Very two important world powers during the 15, 16, and 1700s. That is very important. I'll be emphasizing because that's the time period of the so-called transatlantic slave trade. Right?
All right, peace everyone. We're actually going to, Brother Terrence here, Terrence Bay. We're going to just do a recap, quick recap. I mean, we had over 40 slides here, so we're just going to do a recap of what we talked about in the first two sessions of this. Let me see, bring this up here. Bringing the Moroccan Empire out of a 200-year period of political extinction, disintegration, and political collapse state. This is part 3. We'll do a recap here. In fact, brother, do you want to talk about
yes
first?
Yes. So, part 1 and part 2, and go to the where you on the Crumb TV. You go to that which has part 1 and part 2. Now, this is Moors and Masonry part 1. And I talked about this. Well, in Moors and Masonry Part 1, those are treaties. I have over 100 treaties in Moors and Masonry Part 1. Treaties between the Moroccan Empire and France, Moroccan Empire and England / Great Britain, Moroccan Empire in the Netherlands, Tunis in France, Tunis in Great Britain, Tunis in the Netherlands, Tripoli and Great Britain, treaties between Tripoli and France, treaties between Tripoli and the Netherlands, treaties between Tunis and France, treaties between Tunis and the Netherlands, treaties between Tunis and Great Britain. So I just want to break that down. And there's over 100 treaties listed. And when you look at the treaties, these are trade and protection treaties. The Europe, France, Spain, Great Britain, the Dutch Republic, the Netherlands were able to expand their trade and commerce in different parts of the world as a result of these treaties. So when someone says that these treaties are old, they're irrelevant. Well, these treaties are the reason why France, Great Britain / England, the Netherlands, the Dutch Republic, Sweden, Spain, Portugal were able to expand their world trade and commerce as a result of these treaties. And I have to emphasize that because those who make statements like that, it's because of a lack of study. That's all. So I provide the information, heighten your knowledge through documentary evidence, and have you re-examine your claim. You re-examine your claim with a different set of evidence, right? So people draw conclusions based on you only can draw conclusions based on what's presented. So your conclusions begin to change. You draw a different set of conclusions once you're provided with a different set of information, as I've done, as you will do upon reading Moors and Masonry Part 1 and Part 2, upon reading about the treaties, upon reading about the letters, and about reading upon the fact that the Moroccan Empire seized European ships, France and Spain, and that France was seeking treaties, so that because we were seizing their ships, we were seizing their subjects and their sailors. So this history it's a lot of authors have written about it, the dissertations and treaties and the treatises and books, but it's not known to the general public. It's not that it hasn't been researched. Let's be clear on that. Thousands of books, dissertations, and theses have been written on this subject matter. It's just not known to the general public. That's all. Plays, newspaper articles, letters, the information is available. It's just not known to the general public. This is a hidden gem that we have to bring to the surface to change our political and economic condition.
Right. We can get into part 2.
Now, part 2, I have in chapter 1, I have points of analysis. Points of analysis, we look at a study guide to Moors and Masonry part 1. So part 2 bridges the gap between part 1, Moors and Masonry part 1, and Moors and Masonry part 2. I wanted to do that. In fact, I didn't come up with the points of analysis until a year after Moors and Masonry part 1 was out. And I said, wow, what I'll do with part 1, part 2 is I will include this in part 2. And I actually made it a chapter, points of analysis, so that will help you, that will guide the reader along in part 1. Part 1 is a voluminous amount of information in part 1. I understand that. So chapter 1 of Moors and Masonry part 2 will help the readers and those who have part 1 and have it as part 1's been out since December 2016. It would actually guide you along in your reading and rereading or re-examining part 1, all right, and making that bridge to part 1 and part 2, all right? So, and I have, and put chapter 2, I deal with the Intercatera Divina, going and starting with the Crusades and tying that in, Intercatera Divina, which is a papal bull by Pope Alexander VI, March 4th, 1493. So part 2 deals with the remedy to Intercatera Divina. So we go into the recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty, how to bring the Moroccan Empire out of her 200-year period of its political extinction, collapse, dismemberment, or disintegration. All right, so I outlined Shem Malachi Bey's plan of how to, a proposal actually, his proposal to facilitate the national unity of the various Moorish political body politics into one central governing body. It's a proposal, which is proper, that is viewed as proper in world politics. It's a proposal to the people. It's not, forcing. It's a proposal that is proper, that's political legitimacy of bringing a proposal to the various Moorish body politics, all right, to volunteer, where the various heads of the Moorish body politics will form a interpolitical alliance. And from that interpolitical alliance will form a Moorish Imperial Parliament Council, because the heads will be elected, are elected by their Moorish bodies, their permanent population. They're elected, and they will be set up as delegates, as heads. And so the Moorish Imperial Parliament Council will be made up of the various heads of the various elected Moorish officials, all right, from these various Moorish body politics. So we keep it in line with political legitimacy. We'll review this as we get back to that. Go to that slide.
All right, brother. Just before we get into the recap, I know that 2 hours is going to go by really fast.
Yes.
So can you talk about your mindset when you wrote Moors and Masonry versus your mindset with Moors and Masonry Part 2?
Yes. All right. My mindset, 1993, that I was taught. My mindset for a period of 25 years, from 1993 to 2019. 1993 to, and reconnecting with Shem Malachi Bey. I've known Shem Malachi Bey for about 17, 18 years. So that's why I say reconnecting. As I reconnecting with Shemalik Bay. So from October 1993 to to April 2019. This was my mindset that we the people, in the preamble of the United States Constitution, we have the phrase "We the people of the United States." I was taught that we the people of the United States are the Moors. I was taught that 35 Moors was at the United States Constitutional Convention from March 1787 to September 1787. So I was taught that the Moors established the federal government, which is known as United States federal government, but it's taught that is actually the Moorish federal government and not the United States federal government. All right. So I was taught that the federal government is the Moorish government, right, and that the states government are the Europeans. All right. What that means is that in re-examining that the 13 states had nothing to do with establishing the United States. If what I'm saying is true, which is not, that the 13 states had nothing to do with establishing the federal government, as I was taught that 35 Moors and 20 Europeans was at the United States Constitutional Convention, and therefore I was taught that the federal government was established by the Moors. All right, that was my mindset. So I pushed that. I taught that to thousands of people. So so that went with that mindset, and by having that mindset, I overlooked information because I was stuck with that. I was on the back of the Federal Reserve note, the one note. If you have a one note, all right, I was taught that we have the pyramid on the left and the eagle on the right, and that the word one, and that image on the back of the one note represents a merger. I knew about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between His Imperial Majesty Emperor Morocco and the United States, signed by Muhammad ibn Abdullah in July 1786. So that the federal back of the Federal Reserve note represents a merger between the Moroccan Empire and the United States, that there's actually that both those form the one government, that one representing that this is a one government, that the Moorish government, what they call the United States government, it has a dual side. It has a Moorish side, the pyramid, and it has the European side, the eagle. As these two powers formed in 1787 at the United States Constitutional Convention from March 1787 to September 1787, they formed a merger. There's no documentary evidence of that. There's no documentary evidence that 35 Moors. The only documentary evidence that would verify that are the minutes. The only documentary evidence in the entire world that would verify that 35 Moors were at the United States Constitution are the minutes, the conventional minutes. Because you have to do roll call. One of the procedures, parliamentary procedures, is roll call. You cannot start a meeting without first doing roll call. You must have a quorum. Before starting any meeting, you must have a quorum. So you do roll call. Terrence Bay, roll call. And that's in a minute. You have the signatory section in the Continental Congress, Articles of Confederation. You have the signatory section. It reads delegates of Virginia, delegates of Connecticut. So delegates were at the United States Constitutional Convention. So to say John Madison was at the United States Constitutional Convention is incorrect. the delegate, John Madison, delegate of Virginia, was at the United States Constitutional Convention. Not James. All right, James Madison versus James Madison, delegate of Virginia. What's the difference? James Madison was at the Constitutional Convention versus James Madison, delegate of Virginia, was at the Constitutional Convention. What's the difference? James Madison was at the Constitutional Convention means that James Madison was there in his personal capacity, not representing no one, no body of people, representing himself in his personal capacity. James Madison, delegate of Virginia, means that James Madison was elected in a body. He's represented by a body of people as delegate. It's a huge difference.
Absolutely. Oh man. So we can actually get into it, and we can do a recap of the first 2 weeks here, part 1. And just that you mentioned, about what we were taught, what Moors were taught as being like we're United States citizens, or 35 Moors were at the Constitutional Convention, and you have some Moors that say that, hey, I'm not a United States citizen, but they will pull out a United States Constitution. Well, when you pull out a United States Constitution, whether you get pulled over or you're using that for some sort of protection, let
me provide clarity on that.
Absolutely.
All right.
So yes, this right here, you can also provide that clarity. But it's so we got into the French subjects. Like it says, how did the French subjects become part and parcel of or citizens of the United States?
Yes.
Right. And it was through a treaty. In fact, you can
the Louisiana Purchase Treaty. The Louisiana Purchase Treaty. All right. Let's back up. From the late 1500s to 1763, France had extraterritorial or territorial sovereignty. Was France territorial sovereignty was extended over that Moorish land. All right, that's Louisiana, Canada, Northwest Territory. From late 1500s to 1763, that was the Treaty of 1763, the peace treaty between Great Britain and France. France ceded that large portion of Moorish land to Great Britain. Also, and that Great Britain made an agreement with France that France would have Louisiana. That Spain would have. Great Britain made an agreement with Spain that Spain would have Louisiana. So in 1762, Spain and France created the Treaty of Fontainebleau, which France ceded Louisiana to Spain. From 1762 to 1801, Spain had extended her territorial sovereignty over that land, Moorish land. There was French subjects still there. They didn't leave. The French subjects didn't leave. So remember, you're talking about French subjects from the late 1500s, all throughout the 1600s, all throughout the 1700s. All right? French subjects still remain. That was part of the agreement in the treaty between the Treaty of Fontainebleau between Spain and France. All right? So then you have the Louisiana Purchase Treaty. In the Louisiana Purchase Treaty between United States and France, let me go back. Spain receded the land, Louisiana Purchase, land territory, receded it to France. And then in turn in 1803, France, ceded it to the United States. And in negotiating the treaty, the King of France, looking out for her subjects, negotiated a article in there, a citizenship article, that that French subjects would be protected under the United States Constitution, would be citizens. They're not so the French subjects became citizens of the United States, not by virtue of immigration, but by virtue of that Louisiana Purchase Treaty. There's a citizenship clause. So, question: how did the French become citizens of the United States? By virtue of that Louisiana Purchase Treaty.
Absolutely. Let's go to that article real quick.
Yes.
Since that is in the slide. It says Louisiana Purchase Treaty, Article 3, Citizenship Clause. I put that in here, actually. The inhabitants of the ceded territory shall be incorporated in the Union of the United States and admitted as soon as possible according to the principles of the federal Constitution to the enjoyment of all these rights, advantages, and immunities of citizens of the United States. And in the meantime, they shall be maintained and protected in the free enjoyment of their liberty, property, and the religion which they profess. All right. So now we get into the Mexicans.
Mm-hmm.
How the Mexican subjects become part and parcel.
All right. We have the Treaty of Guadalupe. First at 1864. It's 1864, 1816,
1848.
1848. 1848.
Right here.
1848.
Right.
All right. The Treaty of Guadalupe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a citizenship clause there. So this is how Mexicans had 1 year to remain Mexican nationals, and if they wanted, they had to let the Mexican government know, either way, to whether they're going to remain Mexican nationals or become United States citizens. So this is how Mexicans, which are Moors, all right, under because Mexicans are Moors under Spanish subjugation. But for this conversation, how did Mexicans become citizens of the United States by virtue of this treaty? So this we're leading into this claim that Moors are part and parcel of the United States, part and parcel of the said government in the United States. How? We're showing you. So this is well settled here. So we have two treaties here.
All right. So we can actually just read that one off real quick.
Yes.
Mexicans now established in territories previously belonging to Mexico, in which they remain for the future within the limits of the United States, as defined by the present treaty, shall be free to continue where they now reside, or to remove at any time to the Mexican Republic, retaining the property which they possess in the said territories, or disposing thereof, and removing the proceeds wherever they please, without their being subjected on this account to any contribution, tax, or charge whatever. Hold on. Let me see, did I switch that? I'm sorry. Those who shall prefer to remain in the said territories may either retain the title and rights of the Mexican citizens or acquire those of citizens of the United States, but they shall be under the obligation to make their election within 1 year from the date of the exchange of ratifications of this treaty, and those who shall remain in the said territories after the expiration of that year, without having declared their intention to retain the character of Mexicans, shall be considered to have elected to become citizens of the United States.
Right.
So if they didn't make a choice, you're a citizen of the
United States. Right.
All right. Let's move on to the next. We also had questions. In fact, all of these slides are actually in part 1 and part 2 of this series here. Now we get into the Illinois Hertz Revised Statute, business organizations, Illinois Compliance Statute. You want to,
yes,
briefly explain about that?
Yes, the Illinois And the Noble Jolly filed the, you have that, the religious affidavit, filed a religious affidavit in Cook County, Illinois. And the religious affidavit was part of, it was enacted or drafted under the, or governed under the Herds, Illinois Herds Revised Statute. So this, and you have those in the Moorish Science Temple are claiming that that's what their authority, our authority. That's Illinois Herds Revised Statute. So that, so where it has, where Juali writes that in the divine warning that incorporated in this government, you know, that they won't be recognized unless you come through the Moorish Divine National Movement, which is incorporated in this government. He's talking about the religious affidavit under the Legislative Act of Illinois Herds Revised Statute. Here he is right here. This is not international law. This is not the recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty. This is not how, this is in international law. You would have to show me to refute what I'm saying. You have to show me an international law where a nation loses her sovereignty by conquest, subjugation, and now making an attempt to recover it. This is not the process. Illinois, Cook County is a creature of Illinois. Cook County came about through a legislative act of Illinois. So let's say you have, so you're looking at this is not how a nation who loses a sovereignty recovers our sovereignty by filing paperwork under the legislation of a foreign power. Let's look at international law. That, see what the problem is international law hasn't been taught. So they can't look to international law because they don't know it. This is why I'm teaching international law. They don't know it. They don't know how nations recover their lost sovereignty as a result of being, conquered, subjugated. It's called the recovery of lost sovereignty. You revert to that pre-existing sovereignty, not under going through a legislative act of a body that conquered you. That's a foreign power. They just don't know international law.
So, which leads us to this next slide. Our Moorish sovereignty authority is derived from our Moorish inherent sovereign power, our Moorish birthright, our inherent sovereignty, once exercised by the Moorish caliphs, emirs, beys, deys of the various Moorish dynasties of the Moorish Empire in Phoenicia, modern day Europe, from 711 to 1492, and the Moorish emperors, deys, beys, here I go messing up this word.
Pashas.
There we go. Pashas, Bashaws, emirs of Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, who negotiated trade and protection treaties with the European nations during the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s to protect Europeans from Moorish captivity of their citizens and subjects, as well as enabling European nations to expand their trade and commerce in the different parts of the world.
Right. So it's for their protection as well as our Moorish protection.
Right. So we're going to get into part two. We're going to breeze by part two. We've got a lot more slides to cover. We're going to get into gradual decline of the Moorish power rulership and the collapse of the Moroccan Empire. So you see there were various Moorish dynasties. Throughout. Mm-hmm. Next slide. The Moorish coat of arms. I'm sorry. The Moors in the coat of arms of European aristocratic families. We talked about that. We talked about the Crusades against the Moors. Give you a glance at that.
Mm-hmm.
Treaty of Granada, which was the end of Moorish rule in Phoenicia, modern day Europe.
And then we say Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is the celebration of this. This is a pivotal point in modern world history because this ended Moorish rule and power in Phoenicia, modern day Europe.
All right. That's when we got into the Thanksgiving. Critical thinking question. Actually, we'll get into that.
Yeah, we go ahead.
All right. So just want y'all to take a glance at that. All right. We got into the Christopher Columbus discovered America.
All right.
Now,
Intercatera Divina, which is the papal decree by Pope Alexander VI, March 4th, 1493, is presented in the schools as Christopher Columbus discovered America. It's not Christopher Columbus discovered America. It's Intercatera Divina, a papal decree by Pope Alexander VI authorizing Spain and Portugal to colonize North, Central, and South America. That is the ruling European conquest instrument today that's been in place for 500 years. It's not racism. It's not hatred. It's not prejudice. It is Intercatera Divina. Pope Alexander VI, 1493, taught to your children in the schools as Christopher Columbus discovered America. You must articulate the instrument with clarity.
Let's see what we got next here. European colonization of Moorish land. European land boundaries, cession treaties and surveys. So when we look at maps such as
The one you showed.
Yeah, the one I showed. When you look at maps, it's not just a mere map. It's not just something that they just drew up. You get to see where they're trading, a territorial sovereignty over Moorish lands. So when you see maps, think of treaties, cession treaties, to be exact.
Wars,
bloodshed.
Ceding European powers, occupying European powers, ceding to another occupying European power. In this case, France ceding a large portion of Moorish land to Great Britain in the peace treaty between Great Britain and France, 1763.
All right, let's see what we got next here. Wow. Right. Now we can get into part 3.
And let me finish that. Okay. That 1763 Treaty of Paris between France and Great Britain. At that point, 1763, France had no control of Moorish land. That ended France's control of Moorish land because along with that 1763 Treaty of Paris between France and Great Britain, you also had the Fontainebleau Treaty between Spain and France. That was tied. That's tied. So France had no control. In North America. France had lost all control. Where did France? That's very important. The role of Great Britain. So Great Britain gained a large portion of Moorish land in 1763. Great Britain also gained a lot of control, even then the Treaty of Utrecht of 1713, which ended the War of Spanish Succession from 1701 to 1713. Great Britain Spain lost control of the Iberian Peninsula in 1713, and Great Britain was able to gain control of that. So, leading up to the war, the 7-Year War, Great Britain's power expanded as a result of the Treaty of Utrecht, 1713. This is all connected.
Right. Now we're going to get into the Moorish imperial restoration phases of events. So let me go ahead to that slide, and you can bust it out, Captain.
Yes. Keeping in line with political legitimacy, this is Shem Malachi Bey's plan as taught to the Moorish Imperial Restoration Caucus. That plan, in keeping in line with political legitimacy, as a proposal, an educational plan, and a facilitation of a political model to be in harmony with political legitimacy, and to teaching the Moors in their various communities government structure, constitutional governmental principles, and that the Moors have a divine right and inherent power to teach their people in their various Moorish communities, and to bring and to form a permanent population of voters, and to form a constitution among themselves, as this is taught. So that you have classes. There's Moorish body politic formation classes, 15 of them. All right. So there was educational structure as well as the political structure being taught, keeping in line with political legitimacy, the consent of the people. So this is Shem Malachi Bey's plan as taught to the Moorish Imperial Restoration Caucus.
All right. I guess we can read through these real quick.
Yeah, you can read through it.
So, yeah, seven steps here, which you have the grand opening. Then you had the census registration. Brother, what's important about census registration?
All right.
What's
important about the census registration is it facilitates a permanent population. In the Montevideo Convention and Rights and Duties of States, 1913, and Rights and Duties of States, in what are the principles of statehood and restoring statehood. One of the first is a defined territory and control over defined territory. The second is a permanent population. So census is in line with facilitating a permanent population or a registry or of your nationals. Document it, because you need that to even to facilitate a vote. So that leads to also a permanent population of voters, qualified voters. So this is all in line with political legitimacy, as well as facilitating the requirement to restore statehood, Moorish statehood, and to recover lost Moorish sovereignty.
All right. So next one would be the body politic registration, which you have vendor services, seal creation, constitution, bylaws, and your flag.
Yes. All right. And once again, in keeping in line with political legitimacy, the consent of the people, as the sovereignty, Moorish sovereignty, belongs to our people. And we're getting to later about the illegitimate acts in the false claim of Moorish sovereignty. We'll get into that a little later. Okay. All right. So we're going to go see as we get back. See, we're going to piggy. We're going to tie that. And as we get into the illegitimate acts and false claim of national forming, and these whatever. We'll get into that.
All right. So now we're going to get into the law of nations and global history. Abstract. It talks about. Let's just get into it. Mm-hmm. This chapter examines the state, the case of states that lost their sovereignty to a colonial power and then gained political independence in the 20th century. Should they be classified within the category of original or old states rather than new states? It argues that upon regaining independence, states reverted to sovereignty rather than joining the family of nations as newcomers. A state reverting to sovereignty must be presumed to revert not only to the measure of sovereignty which it lost in the past, but also to the regime of the law of nations with the in oh goodness, wow, I'm listening to whatever. I'm sorry. With the ensuing of rights and obligations which it was forced to abandon at the time of its elimination from the community of law of nations. You want to expand on that?
Yes. Well, you want to look at the when read the
Get into the next one.
yeah, get into the next one because
Cool.
that no, I thought the next one
Look
was
at the Hawaiian sovereignty movement.
yes. We're going to tie that in. We're going to tie this in to the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, right? Because we're looking at the principles of reversion to sovereignty, as an old and original state. Right? There's a case that we'll read after this, right? After this discussion.
Yeah, it's somewhere there.
Somewhere there. All right.
Okay.
Because I want to tie that in.
Okay, so I'll just read this out here. It says the political process of the recovery of loss of Hawaiian sovereignty and restoration of the Hawaiian kingdom. Taking a look at the challenges that the native people of Hawaii face in an attempt to restore Hawaiian sovereignty. And these are 2 points that we wanted to bring up here. Some of the natives of Hawaii political groups are pushing for the United States federally recognized status, like the federally recognized Indian tribal status. And some of the native people of Hawaii are pushing for the recovery of the loss of Hawaiian sovereignty, restore the kingdom, and to re-enter the international community as an old and original state.
All right, go back to the previous slide.
All right.
Reread that.
Abstract. This chapter examines the case of states that lost their sovereignty to a colonial power and then gained political independence in the 20th century. Should they be classified within the category of original or old states rather than new states? It argues that upon regaining independence, states reverted to sovereignty rather than joining the family of nations as newcomers. A state reverting to sovereignty must be presumed to revert not only to the measure of sovereignty which it lost in the past, but also to a regime of the law of nations with the ensuing of rights, obligations, which it was forced to abandon at the time of its elimination from the community of the law of nations.
All right. So I wanted him to look at this ties into you have let's go back to this slide here. All right. So there's a tug of war here. Tug of war that's been going on for as that United States invaded Hawaii and subjugated Hawaii and then later annexed. All right. So you have the state of Hawaii and the kingdom Hawaii. They're not the same. So the state of Hawaii is a union state of the United States. The state of Hawaii was not established by the native people of Hawaii. That is not Hawaiian sovereignty. The state of Hawaii is not a Hawaiian sovereignty. The state of Hawaii is subjugating the native people of Hawaii. The native people of Hawaii has nothing to do with the state in establishing the state of Hawaii. The state of Hawaii was established by Richard Dole. Richard Dole was instrumental in the establishment of the state of Hawaii or the conquest or subjugation of Hawaii, of the kingdom of Hawaii through a coup. So the kingdom of Hawaii was subjugated, led by the financier Mongol Richard Dole of Dole Pineapples. All right, led the way, and put the queen under house arrest in 1873. So the state, and so in the process of conquest, All right, that's subjugation followed by annexation. So Richard Dole, in part of establishing a provisional government, and that provisional government gained statehood within the Union State of the United States. They maintained the same name. That's where the confusion is. They didn't change the name. It's the same name, but it's not the same sovereignty. The state Kingdom Hawaii is Hawaiian sovereignty. The state of Hawaii is not Hawaiian sovereignty. That's the Union State of the United States, just using the same name as the Kingdom of Hawaii. So that's where the confusion is, but understanding international law. So you have an issue. So the United States subjugated the Kingdom of Hawaii, and then later, 7 years later, annexed it. So today, the Hawaii, and keep in mind, the Queen didn't sign anything. So there's no treaty making the native people of Hawaii citizens of the United States. The Queen did not sign a treaty agreeing that her people would become citizens of the United States. Remember, we got the treaty of the Guadalupe Treaty. Let's make the parallel. All right, we got the Guadalupe Treaty. All right, you have the Louisiana Purchase Treaty. The Louisiana Purchase Treaty is why we're making these connections. The Louisiana Purchase Treaty between France and the United States. There's a citizenship article in there. All right. The Guadalupe Treaty between Mexico and the United States. There's a citizenship. There's no treaty, forget clause, article. There's no treaty that the Queen negotiated signed. So how did native people of Hawaii become citizens of the United States? Not by treaty. Subjugation.
Deception.
Not by treaty. Their state was collapsed. The empire, the kingdom. The Queen was placed under house arrest. She was not placed in chains, but she was in, she ate well and stuff. She ate well, but she was under house arrest in her own palace. They took down the kingdom flag. All right. They chopped down the kingdom flag. This is called chopping. They chopped down the Hawaiian kingdom flag, and they raised or hoisted the Star Spangled Banner. So now you have, let's look at, so now you have for the past 80 years now, you have, we talked about the challenges that the native people of Hawaii face. You have a body of Hawaiians who want, and using and being in line with the reversion of sovereignty, want to recover their lost Moorish sovereignty, either restore the kingdom or establish a Hawaiian republic, recover the lost Hawaiian sovereignty, and re-enter the international community as an old individual state. So now you would need a passport to go to Hawaii. Today you don't. Why? Because the United States invaded under Richard Dole, all right? And then annexed it. So you don't need a passport to go to Hawaii. It's a tourist attraction now. But once they recover their lost sovereignty and re-enter the international community as an old individual state, you would now need a passport. And they would have to negotiate, as they had previous treaties with the United States, would have to now negotiate a treaty dealing with that now. And you would then need a passport to go to Hawaii. You don't need one now because the United States subjugated and annexed it. That's why.
All right.
We're talking international law. We must the only way for the reason I'm discussing this like this because of studying international law. That's the only way you're gonna be able to do it. No one in the world will be able to discuss it on this level without having studied international law.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to take a look at Ceylon. Hold on, get that up. A look at the representative of Ceylon and the United Nations International Law Commission under the Law of Succession with respect to treaties, reversion of sovereignty as an old and original state, not as a new state. I'm going to try to read this. It's kind of small on my screen here, but I'll try it. New and original states. The issue of reversion to sovereignty. This come out of the book that a few slides back.
Yes,
Book on
by Charles Alexander with the law nations and law nations and global world history. Law nation and global history.
All right.
Law nations and global history. Charles Alexander with.
All right. So here it is. It says during the discussion of in the sixth. Well, let me see if I can pull up my actual so I can see it bigger here. All right. During the discussion in the Sixth Committee of the UN General Assembly of the report of the International Law Commission on Succession of States and Governments in Respect of Treaties, in October 1968, the representative of Ceylon questioned the use of the term new state as distinguished from old state or original state. He emphasized that the term new could not properly be applied in the case of an ancient state. Let's sink in for a hot second. I'll read that part again. I lost myself. Here we go. Ceylon questioned the use of the term new state as distinguished from old state or original state. He emphasized that the term new cannot properly be applied in the case of an ancient state, such as Ceylon, which had lost its sovereignty to a colonial power and then gained or regained political independence with in the 20th century. In his view, this is a little blurry here. In his view, such a new state should rather be termed original state. He stated that principles of international law should have a sound historical basis. Thus, not only the immediate pre-independence phase of a country's past, but also the period of independence prior to colonial rule might be relevant in determining the principles applicable in respect of state succession. If it is correct to say that Ceylon and states in a similar position are not new states, but that they already existed in the past.
Hawaii, Kingdom of Hawaii, Kingdom of Hawaii.
It is also correct to assume that they reverted to sovereignty in that they are not newcomers to the family of nations.
Moroccan Empire.
It must also be assumed that they reverted to the same family of nations from which they had been eliminated.
Moroccan Empire.
The family of nations is obviously a continuation to changes caused by the let me slide this thing up here. I'm sorry. Subjected to the fluctuations of membership and to changes caused by disappearance and appearance of member states. The question may arise whether it was possible for Asian or African states to have legally existed in the past. Are they capable of being classified within the category of original states? Two answers are possible to this question. One given by the positivist writers of international law of the 19th century and early 20th century, and the other given by the classic writers of the law of nations or by the non-positivist school of thought. I'm sorry.
All right.
I had to slide this thing up. This thing is.
That's fine. All right. So we're gonna so this is important to read, so that we got to get the audience groom them into international law, reading, international law books. This is being a case here, in the International Law Commission, United Nations General Assembly, dealing with the law of succession, rights and duties of states, and rights and duties with respect to treaties. All right, so this is very important that we come to this knowledge, and this is why we're reading excerpts of various international law books, actual cases, excerpts of various treaties. So to groom you into international law concepts and principles, to have you to broaden your mind as I have broadened mine, as Terrence has broadened his, as Mike has broadened his, as Shin Malachi Bey has broadened his. All right. And I want to once again tip my fast to Shin Malachi Bey for his tireless efforts in raising and bringing broadening our mind into treaty studies and international law, and putting this Moorish movement on this proper platform and addressing the over 100-year period of misconceptions about this Moorish movement and about how to recover lost Moorish sovereignty, and to bringing our Moroccan Empire out of a 200-year period of political extinction, dismemberment, disintegration, and collapse. I just want to be very detailed as to what I'm saying and using international law concepts and terminology. Why? Why am I being calculating? Why am I being deliberate in using international law concepts and terminology so as to invoke international law, as well as to bring our issue to the platform of international law arena by using international law concepts and terminology? I'm telling you why I'm doing it.
Political legitimacy. The legitimacy of political power. In political science, legitimacy has traditionally been understood as the popular acceptance and recognition by the public of the authority of the governing regime, whereby authority has political power through consent and mutual understandings, not coercion. All right, so we get into the dictatorship / self-appointment. The non-principles.
Yeah, you read that, and I'll go into.
All right. So here we go. Self-appointment is claiming to have a government position without the consent of the people, no constitutional convention, or no national constitution, claiming to exercise the collective sovereignty of the people without a national constitution, vote of the people through a legitimate election process of millions of people, claiming to exercise the collective sovereignty of the native people by filing documents with any foreign jurisdiction and using a legislative act of that foreign jurisdiction.
Herds revised statute, Illinois Herds revised statute.
Absolutely, that's wrong. A legitimate government cannot exist without the consent, without the people first, or the consent of the people. We cannot present. Here's the doulas here. We cannot present a Moorish nationality card as merely identifying someone as a Moor. We must present it in the context of international law as identifying political allegiance and the nation state under which the person is protected. Are we protected under any state, any Moorish state?
No. All right, let me explain. Because I say no, then they're going to think I'm crazy.
All right.
Because they think they are. So.
All right, hold on. Let me read that.
Read the last one.
We cannot present a Moorish nationality card as merely identifying someone as a Moor. We must present it in the context of international law as identifying political allegiance. Political allegiance is one. And the nation state under which the person is protected. That's the last point. Go ahead.
I don't want to, like I said to you, I vowed to never deal with misconceptions. To you, I'm not going to BS to people, bro. Mm-hmm. Just not. 25 years, I've taught misconceptions to thousands of people. And I sometimes go to bed crying. And I vowed to never, I'm not going to deal with misconceptions. I'm going to be real. In order for us to be protected under the Moorish flag again, we must bring the Moroccan Empire out of her 200-year period of political extinction, collapse, disintegration. Our mother is in a coma. She lay in a hospital. France, Spain, Portugal, Intercaterra Divina, the Vatican, Great Britain / England, her child, the United States, are clamping to our mother while she lay in a hospital. We must bring her out of political collapse so that she can protect us again. We must re-enter the international community as an old and original state. We must realign or reestablish diplomacy with France and Spain and Great Britain and the Netherlands, United States and the Sardinia and Denmark. These are Belgium. These are treaty nations. These are nations with which our ancestors established treaties, in which the sultans, let me be very clear, in which the bashars and the pashas and the beys and the Moorish days and Moorish pashas and Moorish bashars and Moorish emperors and Moorish caliphs and Moorish emirs. Let me be very clear. I don't want to say ancestors. I must be in line with political titles because we teach in government. Ancestors is not a government title. So that's why I said ancestors is not a government title. Bashar is. Bey, Dey, Emperor, Emir, Caliph. Those are Moorish government titles. And those are the ones that negotiated treaties and signed treaties, Moorish bilateral treaties with France and Spain and Denmark and Sardinia and the United States and Great Britain and Belgium. So I have to articulate as I'm teaching to be specific and not use general terms. I must use governmental titles because you're talking about, sovereignty vested in those seats. So those treaties are our legacy, of our legacy of protection. Hence the importance of restoring government among our people and bringing the Moroccan Empire out of her 200-year period of collapse, extinction, dismemberment, disintegration. She's still laying in a hospital. So, yes, we are Moors. We must so we're speaking to the world. We are putting forth a proposal, Shem Malachi Bey, to bring our mother out of her 200-year period of political collapse, extinction, disintegration, due to European conquest. European conquest, that's France, Spain, the Netherlands. That's the Crusades against the Moors from 1095 to 1235. As a result of the Crusades against the Moors, and a result of Philip II violating the Treaty of Granada of 1491, November 25th, 1491, King Philip II of Spain, when he under the Inquisition, when he classified the Moors as Spanish, he did that, which is an act of mass denationalization, which is a human rights violation on the part of King Philip II of Spain. The reason why King Philip II of Spain classified us as Spanish was to remove the protection of the Treaty of Granada. Don't say Spanish. Reserve more personal rights and property reserved in that treaty. Don't say Spanish. Right? So that's an act of mass denationalization of people. Spain continued by classifying us as Negroes. Great Britain continued by classifying us as Indians and blacks. United States didn't do that. Great Britain did that. United States didn't classify us as Indians. Great Britain did that. Their child, Great Britain, Great Britain's child, United States, has continued with their classification of black, Negro, colored.
They're sustaining that.
United States, the great child of Great Britain, has continued with the classification of Spain's classification of Negro. That's because Spain classified the Moors as Negroes and Spaniards and Dominicans and Filipinos. Spain classified the Moors as Filipinos, Negroes, Spanish, Mexicans, Dominicans. Spain did that. So you have a continuation of Spain's effect. Negro, Spanish, Filipino, Mexican, Colombian. That's Spain. Those are Spanish subjects to this very day. Anyone using those are Spanish subjects to this very day. Spain has jurisdiction over that. Black and Indian, that's Great Britain. That's subjects of Great Britain, has jurisdiction over that. All right. Evidence, no problem. I got you. 1926. 1926 case. The Cayuga tribe. Great Britain on behalf of the Cayuga tribe versus the United States in the International Court of Justice. Is my evidence. I made a claim. I'm going to support it. That's the Great Britain on behalf of the Cayuga tribe versus the United States in the International Court of Justice, 1926. As a result, that the International Court of Justice has classified Indians as what? British what? British subjects. British nationals. Indians are British nationals. Indians, Moors classified as Indians, are British nationals per that 1926 case between Great Britain on behalf of the Cayuga tribe and United States and International Court of Justice. Indians are British nationals as a result of that case. I mean, that being not a result of the case, that was, confirms. That confirms that what? Indians are what? Under the jurisdiction of Great Britain and not the United States.
Absolutely.
And Abdullah said, look at the case.
Now, with that, I have a question about that. Now, that deals with language as well because they actually changed the name to Indian from Hindu.
Yes,
it was Sindhu, and then it was
all right, Sindhu Sanskrit. The Moors, Arabicized Sindhu to Hindu. The English anglicized it to Indian.
And so therefore when they anglicized it to Indian, it became under their jurisdiction.
Yes. So that's why they did it.
So that's why in that case,
that's why they did it.
They are under. Absolutely. Here we go. Here's that last question here. Oh, that actually is more of a statement. It is a violation against the collective sovereignty of the Moors for one Moorish body politic to claim the sovereign power of all Moors, Moorish nations, Moorish states, Moorish body politic, Moorish societies, and millions of unconscious Moors without the consent of the Moors, the people.
Mm-hmm. All right, what's been going on? Let me go. What's been going on? My 28 and a half years of observation. You have bought those 5 or 10 conscious Moors who come together and claim to establish a national Moorish government. Or they'll have 2 in California, 4 in Georgia, 3 in New Jersey, 4 in Pennsylvania, and and they say that's a national, they got a national government. 10 people, 20 or 30.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say 100. Let's say 100 in 10 different states. 100 conscious Moors in 10 different states. And they're claiming because they're in 10 different states, it's a national Moorish government. Out of 40 million Moors, 40 out of 40 million, 10, 100 out of 40 million. That's a lack of political science, knowledge of political science, lack of knowledge of political legitimacy, lack of knowledge of the consent of the people. There's a lack of knowledge, Terrence, of political science going on here. And you cannot make the claim. I hear this a lot, Terrence. You cannot come out your mouth and say that the people do not want it. You come out your mouth, my bad. You can come out your mouth and say anything you want, my bad. You can come out your mouth and say anything you want. And the world hears that. You don't have any documentary evidence of you doing community outreach. You say out your mouth, they don't want it. You say out your mouth, you're justifying your actions. You're going to justify to the world your illegitimate political actions. With not in line with the political legitimacy and the consent of the people, by saying the people do not want it. You have not done any legwork, footwork. You have no flyers. You have no pictures where you've been at different festivals or anything that you've made attempts to reach out to the people. You have nothing. You have no track record, anything. You just say out your mouth that the people don't want it, with no evidence that the people don't want it. You just saying it. But because Terrence, they're getting away with it, Terrence. All right, they're getting away with it because our people don't know political science, so they can say anything. The reason why they're getting away with it because the people are uneducated. The Moors are uneducated. That includes conscious Moors and unconscious Moors. Conscious Moors and unconscious Moors are uneducated regarding political science, regarding international law, regarding treaty studies, regarding world history. They're uneducated. So you have conscious Moors who take advantage of that and try to use this movement as a come up. I know people not gonna like me, but I don't care. I'm not here for that. I'm just tired of our people being taken advantage of.
All right. Let's get into the next slide here. Too far here.
Now, those who ain't gonna like me, let me clarify that, because those who do like me, but those who are not gonna like me are ones who.
It's not from their pockets.
The ones who are trying to what?
Get your hand out of my pocket.
To line their pockets, use this movement as a come up. Those are the ones that are not gonna like me. Mm-hmm. All right. So they like there people do like me, but I know the ones who are not gonna like me. Those are the ones. Mm-hmm. Which right. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Principles of the legitimate government. Idea and general principles of the law of nations. This actually came out of the Law of Nations book. This is Emmer D. Vattel.
Yes, you have it up.
So you can show them that real quick. Mm-hmm. That's that book there. That's what this next one came out of here. All right. So section 1, I believe this is in the preliminary section. It says, what is meant by nation or state? Nations or states are bodies politic, societies of women and men. Actually, I put the women in because it just said men.
Yeah, I know.
So societies of women and men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. I just thought that was important to put that in there because it's been an individual thing for so long that I've been seeing.
Mhm.
And also, just like you mentioned, where they're body politic here, that's that's claiming to be the national
Yeah,
government,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's no strength in that. So I thought it was proper to put that in here. So I'll read that again. What is meant by a nation? So that's where you get
Hmm.
national, just the nation.
Yeah,
Group
pertain
of
to the
people.
nation. Yes.
Absolutely. What is meant by a nation or state? Nations or states are bodies politic, societies of women and men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. Getting to the second point. Legitimate government starts with the native people of the land in which the people extend a portion of their sovereignty to a governing body and is expressed through a national written constitution. Want to talk about that one?
Yes. All right. As I said before, the sovereignty belongs to the people. So you have here the people in the park, the people of France, the people of China, the people of England, the people of Morocco, the people of Germany. So when you say it in that context, the people means the repository of the collective sovereignty of the people, that is expressed through a national written constitution. The seats do not belong to the elected official. The elected official is the public servant. You don't rise for no public servant. They rise for you. You're the boss. If you're rising for a public servant, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with that. I'm the boss.
Mm-hmm. Common people.
I'm the people of the boss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm rising for a servant. They know the seat don't belong to them. The seat belongs to the people. That is the sovereignty of the people invested in that office.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about an official. How do you determine? They're exercising a portion of the sovereignty of the country. So once again, the people, that's the repository of the collective sovereignty of the people that is embodied in a national written constitution. So you got to hear. When you're talking about an offense, it's an offense against the state or the people. So you have the French nationals in China. One French national in China get messed up, beat up by Chinese cops. One. The issue is not one French national getting beat up by Chinese cops. No, 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 no. That's as if they attacked all of France. That's as if they attack all of France. Nationality, the national identity of a class or body of people. So that French national belongs to a body or class of people protected by the French Constitution and French treaty that China has with France, has with China. It protects a body, a class of people. So if there is an offense against one, like the principle is not an attack offense against one, it's an offense against the state of France, as if they attack the entire people of France. The people, because that one belongs to that people. That one national belongs to the people of France, the repository of the collective sovereignty of France. We must rise to this principle. With these individual cases, we must rise to this concept and principle. Once we rise to this, it's over. Once we rise to this concept, it's over for the Europeans.
Right. Here's the next one. Probably kind of seems a little redundant, but I put this one in here for a reason. It says the autonomous native sovereign people of the land, through a national written constitution, in their collective nations, states, societies, or bodies politic, united to protect their culture, traditions, rights, festivals, rituals, land, and resources against enemies, foreign and domestic. So when you look at the Haudenosaunee Constitution, when the five nations, came together in that Constitution, you see they protected themselves even against themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They had written in that Constitution, where if one, the consequences if one actually, violated.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I put, foreign, and domestic. So
absolutely, absolutely.
The Native people recognize themselves collectively to exist as one. So that's that one body, right? So if one is injured, as you were saying, Abdullah, then you injure all of them.
Because you injure the body, exactly.
You injure the body. So if you injured one of the nations, they came together collectively. You injured all of them.
Yep.
That's what the what's the bird called the bird at the top of the tree. That was the what was that the
eagle.
The eagle.
All right, eagle.
I couldn't even think of it. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the eagle represented, because the eagle was one who seen far out.
Yep.
See the danger coming.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what that's what he represented, and and even in that Constitution.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So here's the last one: paperwork, applications, identification cards, passports, vehicle registration, etc. is a legislative act by the government. It should be your government.
Yes, and it's owned by the government.
Yes,
it's owned by the government, because it's done under the legislative act of a government. Passports are owned by the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even owned by the individual, because it's done under the legislative act of the government, and how it's distributed, how it's governed.
Mm-hmm.
Legislation governs that.
Mm-hmm.
So if French passport is taken by German officials, well, that passport belongs to his property of France.
Mm-hmm.
They take that. So understand, because because it's done under the legislative act and governed by the French legislation.
All right. So we're going to get into the 1952 case.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, the power of Moorish treaties in the International Court of Justice. The 1952 case between France and the United States. There were three types of treaties that were examined to determine the extent of the United States' extraterritorial consular jurisdiction in Morocco. The first type of treaty, the first group includes the bilateral treaties of Morocco with France, the Netherlands, Great Britain, Denmark, Spain, and the United States, Sardinia, Austria, Belgium, Germany, which covered a period from 1631 to 1892. The second group consisted of two multilateral treaties: the Madrid Convention of 1880, 1906 General Act of the International Conference of Algeciras. And the third was the 1912 Treaty of Fez, which was the French protectorate over Morocco. Do you have anything to?
Yeah, so this treaty, this case in the International Court of Justice,
Mm-hmm.
the extension, so as I said, it's read here that these treaties were used to examine the extent of United States extraterritorial coastal jurisdiction in Morocco. It wasn't. They didn't. It wasn't. The treaty between the Moroccan Empire and the United States was not the only treaty used to determine that. Why were these other treaties used to examine the extent of United States coastal jurisdiction in Morocco? This is important here because the reason I'm harping on this T is that Moors have been taught just one treaty. You know, the United the we have United States officials that the longest standing unbroken treaty in the world.
Treaty piece of friendship.
Well, United States lost extraterritorial jurisdiction in Morocco. United States had to repeal. They had to repeal that. So, how strong is that treaty for the United States? They lost extraterritorial coastal jurisdiction in Morocco. They don't have extraterritorial coastal jurisdiction in Morocco. And United States resorted to the 1856 treaty between Morocco and Great Britain and the 1861 treaty between Morocco and Spain for their protection of their nationals in Morocco. So what about those treaties? So this reveals a lot. What's going on here? You know, this is a very important case because Moors we can use this case here. This is a res judicata. This is res judicata, already decided. I'm emphasizing this because of the misconception that those other treaties, these bilateral treaties, man, France stood on these old treaties. These treaties not enforced. The only treaty in force is the treaty between the Moroccan Empire and the United States, 1786.
1952 wasn't that long ago.
Right. So this debunks that. I mean, they're making these claims. Those claims are debunked. They're refuting those claims with this case. Once again, the value of studying. This is a very important case. I have 30 pages of the United States counter memorial to France. France, in international law, a memorial is a motion that starts a case. It's called a memorial. A counter memorial is a counter memorial, all right, that United States files 6 months later and to answer the memorial that France filed. There's that counter memorial, United States counter memorial to France. In this case, is 600 pages long. I took 30 pages of that, and it's in chapter 10 of Moors and Masonry Part 2. 30 pages of that counter memorial is in chapter 10 of Moors and Masonry Part 2. And among those 10 pages are treaty clauses from various treaties, extraterritorial consular jurisdictional clauses in those cases, in those pages. All right. So I just want to be thorough with that, and I'll indicate that those pages are from the United States Counter Memorial 1952 case. All right. This book is going to be thorough. I can't wait till Moors and Masonry 2 come out. I'm just excited as y'all.
All right. Let me go to the next slide here. All right. So get into the Moorish sea power from 1500s to 1800s, controlling the Mediterranean in the Atlantic.
All right, y'all got Moors and Masonry
Moors.
1. Who has Moors and Masonry
Here
1?
we go.
All right, Moors and Masonry Part 1. Raise your hands. You got Moors and Masonry Part 1. All right. These are the books controlling the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. All right. Seizing European ships, France, Spain, Sweden, Spain, Ireland, Scotland, Denmark, Sardinia, the Netherlands. All right. So this is a major issue here. This tremendous sea power of the Moroccan Empire and the Osman house / dynasty and empire, known to the few as the Ottoman Empire. Two, as I started off an hour and a half ago, two world powers, two sea powers during the 15, 16, 1700s. African scholars do not know this. They have not studied this because they've been down with the transatlantic slave trade claim story, 12 million of us, So when you bring up, let's examine the transatlantic slave trade. In Moors and Masonry Part 2, as I said before, I have points of analysis. And among one of the points of analysis is the sea power of the Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman dynasty and empire. Another point of analysis is our seizing European ships. So using these points of analysis that I have in Moors and Masonry Part 2 and the evidence to support that in Moors and Masonry Part 1, as Moors and Masonry Chapter 1 of Moors and Masonry Part 2 is a study guide for you. All right, so that's to empower you. Let's re-examine this transatlantic slave trade story claim. With this, by placing this Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman Empire in your analysis now. Remember, the African scholars who talk about that don't put this factor in. They write, as well as the European scholars, as if Spain and France and Portugal and Great Britain, England, were back and forth, 1500s, 1600s. I'm molested, back and forth. I'm molested, back and forth. But when you throw in, oh man, wars, military engagement with the Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman Empire, Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman Empire seizing their ships, they have to resort to coming to us for trade and protection treaties. Wow, how could France and Spain and Portugal and in England during the 15, 1600s, 1700s bring out 12 million of us from the continent of Africa across the Mediterranean, the Atlantic Ocean, when the Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman Empire controlled the Mediterranean and Atlantic during that same time period of the so-called transatlantic slave trade. I was 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I was in a conversation. A brother called me. He had purchased Moors and Masonry Part 1. And he said, well, you don't have any maps here. You don't have any maps. And he actually missed the evidence. He missed the voluminous evidence that I have in Moors and Masonry Part 1, showing the power of the Moroccan Empire, sea power. Well, there's no maps here showing that this is Morocco. So I said, let's look at the evidence that I have Moors and Masonry Part 1. Let's look at the military engagement. Let's look at the treaties. Let's look at this tremendous sea power, our seizing their ships and seizing hundreds of thousands of them. Who did they address? The Moroccan Empire. Who are we? Spain. What do Spain, France, England / Great Britain, the Dutch Republic and the Netherlands, and Portugal have in common? They all negotiated treaties, trading protection treaties with the Moroccan Empire. They all, their ships were seized by the Moroccan Empire. Their captains and seamen and merchants were seized by the Moroccan Empire and held for high ransom. They all paid annual tribute payments so that they can sail the high seas unmolested by the Moroccan Empire. That's what they all have in common. What else they all have in common? The claim is that they all transported combined over 12 million of us out of the continent of Africa to North, Central, South America. We just got to bring this to the forefront, y'all. Let's re-examine with this preponderance of evidence of this tremendous power of the Moroccan Empire and the Ottoman Empire, sea power during the 15, 16, 1700s. Re-examine it. We've been given just one side of the story. We've just been given this. They transported out of the continent of Africa. Also, you have the archaeological evidence of the stone heads, masks, figurines. The book Unexpected Faces in Ancient America by Alexander von Rutenau have over 150 photos of masks, figurines, statuettes with broad noses and thick lips. We just accepted a story without examination. When people don't know who they are, we're gullible for anything.
All right, let's go. Hey, man, we almost done. I didn't think we were going to get through it all. All right. Using Moorish treaties with the European nations during the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s for recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty and reversion to Moorish sovereignty as re-entering the international community of nations as an old and original state claim. Yeah, we did kind of talk about that already. All right, let's see what we got next. There you go.
All right.
and just I actually didn't put the European report up. I kind of forgot, but this is the same category that they're putting us in with this. But yes. Let's go ahead into this. Moorish movement represented as a sovereign citizen movement, anti-government, domestic terrorist movement, and black identity extremist movement. The report sent to all police departments in the United States jurisdiction. Let's get into that.
All right. What the problem is, let's go back. Remember, we're talking about the people of Morocco, the people of France, and what does that mean? All right. That's the repository of the collective sovereignty of the people. What's been happening, Terrence, is that you have these individual Moors. We're not operating as a governmental body. We're operating as individuals. We're saying that we're Moors. Yes, we're Moors, but through our expression, we're acting as if we're United States citizens. When you say you're Moor, that's just your consanguinity. You're not. You're not identifying the government, the nation state to which you have allegiance. That doesn't do it. I gotta clear this up. Saying you're Moor does not identify the national sovereignty, the flag to which you have allegiance and to which you are under which you are protected. It does not. I made a claim. Let me support it. A French national moves to China and based on the Chinese nationalization laws, the Chinese, the French national lives in China for a certain period of time to qualify for Chinese citizenship. Now the French national is qualifies for Chinese citizenship. Now, when the French nationals pledges allegiance, that goes through the naturalization process, the Chinese naturalization process. The French is now, he's still French. He's still French. All right. But he's no longer a French citizen. He's what? Renounces his citizenship and allegiance to France and pledges citizenship and come under the protection of China. So that French will be correct. Say, I am a French. So he'll have in his house, the French will have in his house, the French flag and the Chinese flag. That he only has in the French flag. The French flag he's not protected on the French flag. He's not the French is no longer protected on the French flag. So that just shows this culture tie, right? That is the flag of his national origin. The French flag is the flag of his national origin, is not the flag on which he's now protected under. So yes, he's French. Oh, I'm French. But that don't. He's saying he's French, but he ain't protected by France anymore. He's saying he's French. See, I can go anywhere in the world and say this. He's saying he's French. He's saying he's French, but he's not protected by the French flag anymore. So we're saying we're Moors. But that you're not explaining, you're not saying you're protected. I mean, what is the state? You got to bring Morocco out of political extinction. See, that's where the confusion is. That they're saying we're Moors. Yes, we're Moors. But our mother's still in the hospital. We're acting as if we're United States citizens because we were taught 35 Moors with the United States Constitutional Convention. We the people of the United States is the Moors. Go on the Federal Reserve note. Yeah, that's the one. It's a dual national government. Yeah, dual national side. The United States is the dual national side. You got the Moorish side and you got the European side. That creates the confusion. I was caught in that confusion, that web of confusion for 25 years. It inhibited my growth. Not a shred of evidence of a merger. There's not a shred of evidence. When you're talking, if that image be true, subjunctive mood, the old structure, subjunctive mood. If that image be true, on the back of the Federal Reserve note, there must be a merger supporting the image. The image is not evidence. The image on the back of the Federal Reserve note is not evidence. A declaration of merger is evidence. Hear me out, my brothers and sisters. I was played too. The image on the back of the one note is not evidence. A declaration of merger is evidence. Where is it? When you have if they be a declaration of merger, I'm using subjunctive mood old form. If they be a declaration of merger, that means there would be what? That Morocco doesn't exist anymore. Moroccan Empire doesn't exist anymore. United States doesn't exist anymore. Because now you have to have a collapse of both those states. And now what? A formation of a new state. Where now will be half of the flag will be the Moorish flag and half will be United States flag, Star Spangled Banner. Representing a formation of a merger or new state, but would not be viewed and the same as a new state because of previous treaty agreements, which means a merger doesn't dissolve the previous treaty agreements. Where is that? Once I start studying international law, Terrence, my whole world opened up. I began to analyze this in the context of international law now. So, oh my gosh. Once again, I want to tip my fist to Shem Malachi Bey for opening me up. to international law and treaty studies, where I can have a better view of analyzing world history. I want to thank Shem Malachi Bey, all right, because somebody's trying to steal his plan. His proposal to facilitate, as taught to the Moorish Imperial Restoration Caucus. Somebody out there, we got a thief in the house. We got a thief in the house. Somebody trying to steal that plan and claim to be his. Somebody trying to steal that plan and claim to be his. That's Shem Malachi Bey's plan proposal to the various Moorish body politics to form an intergovernmental alliance under that was called the Treaty of Liberty, an intergovernmental alliance among the heads of the various Moorish body politics, which would be in line with political legitimacy, and having formed the intergovernmental alliance among the various Moorish body politics, there will be a formation among the heads of the various Moorish body politics, a Moorish Imperial Parliament Council. That is Shem Malachi Bey's proposal. Somebody trying to steal it. I have it listed as Shem Malachi Bey's proposal in my book. I will address it that way all the time. It's on the screen.
So we already have the Treaty of Liberty. So it's a recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty and restoration of statehood movement, or let me start there. I'm sorry. A recovery of lost Moorish sovereignty and restoration of Moorish statehood movement, or a sovereign citizen movement. I think but anyway here. Treaty of Liberty, that's point 1. Point 2. Shem Malachi Bey's proposal of a Moorish intergovernmental alliance among the various Moorish body politic, Moorish Imperial Parliament Council, for a Moorish central governing body made up of the head of elected officials of various Moorish body politics. So yeah, you just spoke about that. So actually, man, we're done. In fact, we can go back to.
Let's go back to
just real quick. I just want to let me see if we can see this actually.
Yeah, just take the report. Let's go back to the report because I didn't finish it.
Yeah, I don't think we can see this much, but I'm going to go to my slides here, and I just wanted to go through the.
Because this report was sent to this report was done under the funding, the guidance, and leadership of the United States Department of Justice. It was disseminated by the United States Department of Justice to all police departments throughout the country.
Yeah, so I just want to get into, not get into, but I want to read the table of contents a little bit. Introduction, page 2, talks about the Moorish nation, the background of the MSTA, Moorish Science Temple of America. Page 3, sovereign citizen movement, which we are not sovereign citizens. Paper terrorism. Page 4 talks about recent MSTA classes. Of course, at the time of the report. MSTA prison structure, gang association. So this is what they're, trying to put us into to make us look like criminals. We don't know what we're talking about. These people are idiots, and
Gotta keep on talking. Yeah.
All right. MSTA nationality cards talked about
being fraudulent.
Absolutely. Page 8 talks about the
form of identification.
Nationality cards, Prophet Noble Ali. Page 9, the MSTA Constitution. Also has on page 9 the MSTA establishment and documents, Moorish Republic Trust. Page 10, the MSTA Republic Trust Protection Tools. Page 11, Vehicle Conveyance Registration. Okay, so that's one thing. The reason why I put that in, the other slide, because we have no Moorish state,
that we have to be restored.
of any protection. So we don't have, vehicle registration. So one reason for putting that in here. Let's see here. Also on page 11, Moorish nationality card and symbols. Travel documents on page 12. Page 14, it has diplomatic immunity documents. It has, page 16, MSTA factions. 17, it has terrorist ties. So, of course, they're trying to call us terrorists. MSTA locations, sources of information, page 19. And so that's pretty much
I'm glad you read that, bro.
So I just wanted to point those out.
Yeah,
so,
that's yes.
Y'all look that up and then point out the look at it and analyze it.
We're gonna have this on the we gotta have this we'll have this on the site website. So
okay.
We can have that.
Yeah,
because I have this is chapter 12 of Moors and Masonry Part 2. Yeah. This is chapter 12. Right? The title of this report is chapter 12 of Moors and Masonry Part 2. Yeah. I'm letting people know.
So here we are. Moors and Masonry Part 2. In fact, I'm going to actually. Oh, we have what? 4 minutes? 4 minutes. Here. Again, Moors and Masonry Part 2.
All right, coming your way soon. All right, Moors and Masonry Part 2. Moors and Masonry Part 1 is available now. Go to moorsandmasonry.org. moorsandmasonry.org. You have the Masonic Complex of Square and the connection of measurement and timekeeping, etymology and vocabulary. Etymology and vocabulary is something that you want. Illuminati and illumination of the mind. How Moon and Venus rule. moorsandmasonry.org. Go to moorsandmasonry.org and get your Moors and Masonry Part 1 if you don't have it. Part 2 is coming your way soon, as you see here. moorsandmasonry.org, the title of the book.org. All right. I definitely want to once again give a shout out to Crum of Crum TV for opening up this platform to the Moroccan Post so that we can bring this level of international law and other lessons to you. We're going to definitely we have a guest. We're coming back in 2 weeks. We have 2 guests that will be with us. All right, 2 guests will be with us in 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to doing that. All right, so thank you again. Once again, to get my books, go to moorsmasonry.org. We greatly appreciate you. All right. We will be on Moore's information, more Minister of Information, Part 2. Shem Malachi Bey, Michael Bay, and I will be this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Minister of Information platform. All right, and so we'll be there on Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you again. We see you in 2 weeks on this platform. All right. So once again, go to Moors and Masonry Part 2, .org. Thank you again. I want to thank Terrence for his tireless efforts and assisting me and doing these broadcasts.
All right. Once I just want to give a shout out to Crum. Thanks a lot for lending your platform out once again. Thank you for the ones who tuned in. I see Empress Bella. Just shout out a couple names here. Afro Samurai. I see him. I see him in here. Islam Moors. Peace and love. Amanda. So thanks a lot for rocking with us once again for another installation of Rockin' Post.